I should have gone in after them. That's the thought that still keeps me up at night 3 years later. Not because I was a coward, but because I genuinely think that going in after them might have meant none of us came back. Let me explain. I was 17, summer between junior and senior year. That specific kind of summer where you're bored enough to do something stupid but old enough to know you probably shouldn't. My two best friends, Marcus and Devin, had been talking for weeks about this old textile mill on the edge of our town in rural Georgia. Millbrook, population maybe 4,000. The kind of place where everyone knows your parents and there's nothing to do after 9 p.m. The mill had been shut down since the early 90s. Some kind of industrial accident, people said. No one really talked about the details. It sat about 3 miles outside of town behind a chain-link fence with two broken padlocks and a faded no trespassing sign that looked older than my parents. Marcus had been inside once before, he claimed. Said it was just empty floors and broken glass. Nothing crazy. He made it sound like the kind of thing you'd regret not doing. That's how 17-year-olds make decisions. Someone brave talks and the rest of you follow. We drove out there on a Friday night in Devin's older brother's car. It was maybe 10:30. The sky was that deep purple-black that comes before full dark, and the road leading out to the mill was unpaved, just packed red Georgia clay with weeds growing up the middle. Devin parked maybe 50 feet from the fence. We sat there for a second with the engine off. Nobody said anything. That should have been a sign. We were never quiet. The three of us together were always talking over each other, laughing, making jokes. But sitting there in that car looking at that building, we all just went quiet at the same time. The mill was big, bigger than I expected. 4 stories, maybe 5, with tall, narrow windows that had no glass in them anymore. Just open black rectangles staring out. The moonlight caught the roof at a weird angle and made the whole building look like it was leaning slightly toward us, even though I know that's not possible. Marcus said, "You guys ready?" Devin said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." We got out of the car. Here's what I remember about the walk to the fence. Normal things, crickets, distant highway sound, the smell of rust and old wood even from that distance. Marcus had a flashlight. Devin had his phone. I had nothing because I'd forgotten mine on the kitchen counter charging. We squeezed through a gap in the fence where someone had peeled it back years ago. The weeds inside were taller up to my waist in some spots. We walked toward the main entrance, which was just a gap where big industrial double doors used to be. They were gone, just the frame. I stopped about 15 feet from that entrance. I don't know why. There was no sound, no movement, nothing I could point to and say that's why. I just stopped and my body didn't want to go further. My legs literally felt heavy. Marcus turned back and looked at me. "You coming?" I stood there. I don't know what I said, something like "I'll keep watch," something weak like that. Marcus looked at me for a second longer than normal, not mean, not laughing at me. Just looked at me like he understood something. Then he nodded and turned back. They both walked into that building. I stood outside. For maybe 10 minutes everything was fine. I could see the faint sweep of Marcus's flashlight through the ground floor windows. I could hear them moving around, their voices echoing. Once Devin laughed at something, and it bounced off the walls inside and came out distorted, too long, wrong. Then the light stopped moving. I waited. Nothing. I called out, "Marcus." My voice sounded ridiculous in the open air. Flat. No answer. I told myself they were just on a different floor. Flashlight aimed the other way. Probably messing with me because I'd been too scared to go in. But then something else happened. I heard a car. Not from the road we'd come in on. From somewhere behind the building, on the other side. And it wasn't driving. It was already parked. I heard the engine cut off. That specific tick-tick-tick sound a hot engine makes when it goes suddenly quiet. I turned around slowly and looked toward the far side of the fence line. There was a truck parked on a dirt access road I hadn't even seen when we arrived. Dark-colored, old, just sitting there with its lights off. And someone was in it. I could see the silhouette through the windshield, just sitting, not moving. I want to be really clear about this detail because I've thought about it so many times. The truck wasn't there when we pulled up. I know that road, I know that sight line. That truck had pulled up quietly, cut the lights, and parked while my friends were inside that building. I turned back toward the entrance and called louder, "Marcus, Devin, guys, we need to go, right now." My voice was shaking and I didn't try to hide it, nothing from inside. I pulled out and then I remembered. No phone. I stood there for what felt like a long time but was probably 2 minutes. The truck didn't move. The silhouette didn't move. No lights came on inside the building. No voices. And then I heard something from inside the mill that I cannot explain. Footsteps, but wrong, too slow, too heavy. Single footsteps with long pauses between them, like someone placing each foot very deliberately, not like someone walking naturally. Coming from somewhere on the upper floors, getting closer to a window, I looked up. There was a shape at one of the third-floor windows, dark, still. It was not Marcus. It was not Devin. It was too wide, too tall, and it wasn't moving the way a person exploring a building moves. It was just standing there in that black window looking down, looking at me. I ran. I'm not proud of it. I ran back through the gap in the fence, back through the weeds, back to the car. I tried the door, it was locked. Devin had the keys. I crouched behind the car and I watched both the building entrance and the truck, and I just waited, shaking, trying not to make a sound. The truck's engine started. Slowly, it backed up down the access road and disappeared. No headlights the entire time. 18 minutes after they went in, I know because I checked the time on the dashboard when they finally came back. Marcus and Devin walked out of that building. Devin was pale. Marcus was quiet in a way I had never seen him. He was always the loud one, always making some comment about everything. He got in the car and didn't say a word. I asked what happened. Devin said, "We don't want to talk about it right now." I told them about the truck, about the shape in the window. Devin's expression when I described it made my stomach drop, like I had just confirmed something he was hoping I hadn't seen. Marcus drove the whole way home without speaking. I pushed them for weeks after that. Texts, calls, in person. Neither of them would fully tell me what happened inside that building. Devin eventually said they'd gotten turned around on the upper floors and heard something moving in the dark with them. He said the flashlight went out. He said they hid. He said whatever was walking around in there knew they were there. He said it walked right past them in the dark. That's all he'd say. Marcus never talked about it at all. Here's the part that I want you to really hear. About 2 months later, I was curious. I know. I looked up the mill online. Old news articles, local history blogs. I found a piece from 1991 about the accident, an industrial fire. 2 workers died inside. But in the comments section of one of those articles, posted 3 weeks before we visited, was a single comment from an account with no profile picture and no other posts. It said, "Someone should tell people to stop going in there at night. They don't always come out." The account was created the same day that comment was posted. It has never posted again. I don't know who was in that truck. I don't know what my friends saw on those upper floors. I don't know who or what was standing in that window watching me, but I know this. I was the only one who didn't go inside, and I'm the only one who sleeps fine. Marcus and Devin, they're both still around, still alive, but something changed in them after that night. Something they brought out of that building that they can't seem to put down. I don't ask anymore. Some things you go looking for. And some things, I think, follow you home. Don't go into abandoned buildings at night, not because of ghosts, because of what's already in there, waiting.